The studio lights burned hot against Suzy Lamb's skin as she smiled into camera 3. Around her, technicians adjusted microphones while her husband Jonathan reviewed script notes. In the control booth, her father-in-law Marcus Lamb's voice crackled through headsets, 30 seconds to air. Outside this $200 million Christian broadcasting empire, millions awaited their daily dose of inspiration. But Suzy's hands trembled beneath the desk. 48 hours earlier, the network's chiropractor had assaulted her in his treatment room. Now, Marcus's final instruction echoed in her ears. No one can know. Protect the ministry. This wasn't supposed to happen at Daystar Television Network. Founded by Marcus and Joni Lamb in 1997, the organization grew from a single broadcast tower into a global powerhouse reaching 200 million homes. Their programs promised spiritual refuge, a sanctuary from the world's corruption. Yet behind the polished sets and scripture-quoting hosts, a different reality festered. Suzy Lamb, married to the founder's son Jonathan, was discovering how quickly that sanctuary could become a prison when she dared report harm. The trouble began with a personnel decision few questioned. In late 2016, Daystar hired a chiropractor to treat staff and family members. Most employees didn't know the man had surrendered his medical license years earlier amid child abuse investigations. Marcus and Joni allegedly knew but believed he'd reformed. People deserve second chances, Marcus reportedly told Jonathan during the hiring process. For Suzy, this mercy toward a potential predator would soon curdle into betrayal. January 2017 started like any other workweek. Suzy visited the chiropractor's office complaining of back pain. His assistant stepped out briefly to fetch supplies. In those unprotected minutes, Suzy claims the practitioner's hands turned violent. He allegedly pinned her, groped her beneath her clothes, and hissed threats when she resisted. Though not a rape, the violation left her shaking and disoriented. She fled to Jonathan's office, sobbing out the story between gasps. Jonathan Lamb's reaction was volcanic. As Daystar's operations director, he immediately called his parents, then traveling for ministry work. Marcus answered on speakerphone. Jonathan's shouting filled the room. "He attacked Suzy! We're calling police!" Marcus's response stunned them both. "Absolutely not," he allegedly declared. "I'll handle it discreetly. Do not speak of this again." The line went dead before Jonathan could protest. What followed was a masterclass in institutional silencing. When Marcus and Joni returned days later, their approach was surgical. Joni summoned Suzy to her dressing room. "He's gone," she said, applying makeup for that evening's broadcast. "But you understand we can't let this harm the ministry." She framed secrecy as spiritual duty. Millions depend on us. Satan wants to destroy our witness. Then came the practical threats, subtle but unmistakable. "If this gets out," Joni reportedly warned, "it could end Jonathan's career here." Trapped between trauma and loyalty, Suzy complied. She hosted Celebration that night, smiling through nausea as Joni praised God's faithfulness beside her. Off-camera, her body rebelled. Panic attacks struck without warning. She lost 15 pounds in a month. Jonathan watched helplessly as his wife retreated into silent suffering. When he confronted his parents again, Marcus reportedly waved him off. "Stop dwelling on the past. Focus on the harvest." For 4 years, the secret festered beneath Daystar's glittering surface. Suzy buried memories of the assault, channeling energy into parenting and production meetings. Then, in November 2020, the past detonated in their living room. Their teenage daughter collapsed in tears, confessing her own sexual abuse by a family acquaintance. Suzy's maternal instincts warred with years of conditioning. This time, she vowed, would be different. The next morning, Suzy marched into Joni's office. "We're reporting it to police today," she announced. Joni's reaction was chillingly familiar. "Don't be rash," she allegedly urged, closing the door. "Bring her to me first. We'll pray through this." Desperate for support, Suzy agreed. The private meeting lasted 2 hours. When her daughter emerged, she was pale and withdrawn. "Grandma says it's between us and God," she whispered. "We can't tell anyone." The girl never spoke of the abuse again. This second silencing broke Suzy. By spring 2021, suppressed trauma erupted in crippling anxiety. She'd wake gasping from nightmares about the chiropractor's hands. During Sunday broadcasts, his face would materialize in the teleprompter text. Jonathan found her curled on bathroom floors, weeping uncontrollably. The realization crystallized: Daystar's protection had been poison. In May 2021, they hired a therapist who diagnosed complex PTSD, directly linked, she said, to institutional betrayal. The Lambs' response to Suzy's breakdown revealed their priorities. When Jonathan requested a sabbatical for her recovery, Marcus allegedly refused. Viewers expect her on set. Production schedules took precedence over therapy appointments. During one crisis meeting, Joni reportedly snapped, "Must we keep reliving this? Think of the donors." It was the final betrayal. In September 2021, Suzy sat before a reporter from the Roy's Report and dismantled Daystar's stained glass facade. Her account detonated across evangelical media. Daystar's PR team scrambled, issuing a three-part denial. First, they claimed multiple witnesses were always present during chiropractic treatments, contradicting Suzy's description of an empty room. Second, they cited an internal investigation clearing the Lambs, though no report was produced. Third, they framed the Lambs as victims. Founders Marcus and Joni have championed abuse survivors for decades. But the rebuttal crumbled under scrutiny. Former employees leaked emails showing Marcus personally approved the chiropractor's hiring despite his revoked license. Security logs confirmed no other staff entered the treatment room during Suzy's appointment. Most damningly, 3 additional women contacted journalists with nearly identical stories, assaults covered up by Daystar leadership between 2014 to 2019. The scandal exposes how religious power structures enable predators. Unlike Catholic dioceses with formal hierarchies, televangelist empires like Daystar operate as family dynasties. Marcus and Joni held all executive and spiritual authority. Their sons Jonathan and John sat on the board. When allegations threatened the brand, the machine activated automatically. Isolate victims, invoke divine mandate for silence, discredit accusers. Suzy's therapist notes the insidious genius: they weaponized her faith, making her feel sinful for seeking justice. Current employees describe a climate of fear. "You see the Lamb family parking spots, their private elevator," says one producer granted anonymity. "Questioning them is like questioning God." This culture extends to Daystar's business model. Tax filings show 92% of their $200 million revenue comes from elderly viewers on fixed incomes, devotees who send $20 monthly checks believing they're funding gospel outreach. Whistleblowers claim the Lambs exploited this trust, using
Legal
donations to buy beachfront condos to recent megachurch while pleading poverty on air. It's the same playbook, says attorney Rebecca Moore, who represented victims against Bill Gothard and Ravi Zacharias. Isolate, spiritualize, monetize. She notes disturbing details in Suzy's case. Joni's alleged intervention with the granddaughter mirrors how Catholic bishops shuffled abusive priests between parishes. Directing a minor not to report abuse isn't pastoral care, it's obstruction of justice. The human cost radiates through Suzy's daily life. She rarely leaves home now, jumping at doorbell sounds that recall the chiropractor's threats. Jonathan resigned from Daystar, fracturing his relationship with his parents. Their daughter remains in intensive therapy, struggling with guilt for causing trouble. Meanwhile, Marcus and Joni continue broadcasting from a new studio, their sermons now emphasizing spiritual warfare against false accusations. Yet cracks are appearing in Daystar's fortress. Major donors like the Wilkes brothers have withdrawn funding. Streaming platforms demonetized their content. Most significantly, former music director Karen Vaughn recently filed suit alleging Marcus groped her during a 2018 prayer session, and that Joni offered hush money. This pattern suggests Suzy's case wasn't an anomaly, but standard operating procedure. The ultimate tragedy may be spiritual. Daystar built its empire selling certainty, biblical answers for chaotic times. But as emails, witness statements, and financial records emerge, a darker certainty takes shape, that for decades, the loudest voices preaching righteousness allegedly enabled predation. Now, as lawsuits multiply and the Lamb dynasty fragments, a painful truth echoes through empty soundstages. No sanctuary built on silent screams can stand forever. In her Dallas counseling office, Suzy traces the scars on her wrist, not from suicide attempts, but from digging her nails into skin during panic attacks. "I used to believe Daystar was God's mouthpiece," she says softly. Now I know any institution that sacrifices victims on the altar of reputation has lost its way. She watches raindrops slide down the window, each one eroding the edifice she once helped build. Somewhere beyond the glass, Marcus Lamb's sermon plays on a car radio, "The truth will set you free." The irony hangs thick in the air, another ghost in a house full of them.